want Vargas to be the head of this because he's an administrator. They don't want a politician to be head of this who has any support of the people. They just want an administrator. January 8th, they're ordered to form the executive commission. It comes through on the 23rd, and Vargas will be head of the commission. Jose P. Larell will be Secretary of Justice, Aquino, Secretary of Interior, and these men will be working at the whim of the Japanese of what they want. Like I said, to help the people, be that cushion. This is what they want to do. This is the desire that they have. And then Tojo starts dangling independence. January 22nd, 1942, goes before the Japanese Diet and says, we're going to give the Filipinos their independence. Now this is kind of a ploy to work with all the rest of the Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere countries to let them see, oh, this is what we're doing for the Philippines, you work with us, and we're going to give you this as well. And the Japanese will propagandize this all over the Philippines, trying to get rid of any last vestige of American influence on the Philippines. It'll be totally popularized, and this is what Quezon and MacArthur have to deal with while sitting on Corregidor getting bombarded by the Japanese. It's complete control. Residence certificates, everybody has to have one. There's only 6 administrators to deal with over 1 million Filipinos in Manila to get these cards, and you really can't go anywhere or be anywhere without them. The Japanese have cut off the city. The Japanese control everything, and the atrocities have already begun within the city, and the main thing of slapping people around. What would it have been like if the Japanese hadn't slapped anyone? Maybe a bit different, but we'll never know, because history is what history is. How to counter the propaganda fury. You've got Aguinaldo, February 8th, broadcasting to all the troops on Bataan to surrender. You've got this leaflet that comes out from Vargas telling them all to surrender. The Japanese are just here to help us. Now, we know that Vargas is dominated by the Japanese, and so when this leaflet comes out, Quezon says, nah, this is just the Japanese forcing them to do what they do. But MacArthur is furious at this, and he'll carry this pretty much through the beginning of the war about what he feels about the people who were left behind to deal with the Japanese. But it will change. Quezon's furious as well. This is his letter to Roosevelt. All you care about is Europe? A distant cousin you're gonna help while your daughter's getting raped in the back room? These are Quezon's words. Fury. Never forget. Never forget what they have, because they were being lied to the whole time. All the message traffic within the MacArthur Memorial, MacArthur's always saying, is help coming or not? And they're all never say yes or no. They'll just say, help is on the way. Thousands of troops are going to Australia. We're going to hold dominance over Mindanao, keep air supremacy, and they're lied to the whole time. February 1942, MacArthur is ordered out by Roosevelt to go to Australia to take a new command. MacArthur doesn't want to go, but they go through all that message traffic and say, look, this is everything that's in Australia waiting for us. Let's get down there. We'll have a mounted offensive that comes right back. He gets down to Australia, finds there's nothing there, and will never trust Washington again. That's where the whole gap starts between MacArthur and Washington that'll last all the way through the Korean War. Quezon is furious. He didn't want to leave the Philippines. He felt he should go back to Manila to take the brunt rather than having the people that he had left in charge. He wanted to be the one there. When he gets to Australia, he as well is livid and believes they have been completely lied to on Bataan and Corregidor. Defeat comes May 1942, April 9th on Bataan, May 6th on Corregidor. 75,000 go on the death march. 26,000 Filipinos will die in those camps at O'Donnell to help the people. Laurel's left here, and they start petitioning the Japanese. You gotta let these people go. They're in these camps. They're all dying. They're petitioning for Rojas. They know he's been captured down on Mindanao. And only because of Japanese Nobuhiko Jimbo saving Rojas, seeing this man is a future of the Philippines. We cannot kill him because orders are coming through to that effect. That's probably what they're gonna do, because we know what happens to Jose Abad Santos. Taken on Cebu, killed down on Mindanao, and this strikes fear in all those people that are left in Manila. And that's the thing. People in America will be sitting there calling these people traitors from far away, saying, oh, we would have acted different. We would have acted like Santos. How come they didn't act like Santos? Nobody knows what you're going to do in that situation until that situation happens. You know, nobody knows what's going to happen when there's a gun to your daughter's head. Kazan understands that. MacArthur's going to come to understand that. But Larell will be petitioning to get these people freed. He will be the savior of Rojas, no doubt. Especially when the Kempe diet comes on later in 44, wanting to arrest him. And Larell's got the guts to stand up to him and say no. December 42, Galibapi, the last vestige of American control is ended. The Nacionalista Party is ended. This is modeled after a Japanese political party. Everybody has to become a part of this. You don't get government pay unless you're part of the Galibapi. Aquino and Ramos are made the officers, and because of that, now Larell will become Secretary of Interior under the Executive Commission. Quezon, March 1943, knows what's going on in the Philippines, knows that this independence is being dangled, and makes a radio broadcast over Voice of Freedom to the Philippines. Japanese promising you independence. Yeah, you'll be independent like Manchukuo. We know what happened in Nanking. We know what happened in Singapore. We know what happened on Bataan. Don't listen to them. All this is a puppet government they're offering you. Look what the Americans did. This is Quezon saying this, not me. They gave us freedom of the press, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. Ended all those diseases that have been here. What are the Japanese offering you? Brothels. Don't listen to it. Keep the faith. America's gonna come back. The words of Quezon. Now, as Secretary of Interior, while this is going on, Larell is forced to go on this pacification campaign. Now, Larell also is very fearful of all the degradation of the Philippines, the Japanese atrocities, and he comes to see that if they can end the guerrilla movement, or at least show the Japanese they're working to end the guerrilla movement, this will help the Philippines end the violence, because it's only the uprisings of the guerrillas that they see, at least the Japanese, that is keeping the peace from being kept. So they go on a campaign to end this. Now, they offer them amnesty, the guerrillas. This is the guerrilla response. This is a propaganda note made on Negros, saying, amnesty or aid. You can see the guerrilla there with the Japanese behind him with the bloody sword, and Roosevelt bringing the aid. And that's what they're always, it's not America, when's the aid coming? And the guerrillas will have a very different opinion of the people they say are collaborating. May 1943, Tojo comes to the Philippines. He's gonna give them their independence. He wants to come gauge what's going on. So he comes here for Batang Corregidor Day. This is Larell with Tojo meeting at the Manila Hotel. Corregidor anniversary of May 1943 celebration. The Filipinos are told to turn out with Japanese flags, and this is where Tojo gauges what the Philippines are about. It's a show. It's a show for the Japanese. And then it'll come to that they will grant them their independence. And the choice is Larell to be president. Vargas is an administrator. He doesn't have any support of the people. Ramos, Rigarte, Aguinaldo, they don't have support of the people. And plus, right before they make their choice, what happens to Larell at Whack Whack Golf Course? They try to assassinate him. Larell will say that he knew what it was and never told anybody. Marking's guerrillas, Narciso Manzano in his memoirs will say, no, we wanted to show that we can get at anybody. Japanese will execute 5-6 people they say are related to the crime, but the killer's never caught, I don't believe. Maybe someone else will say different. I hope so. Here to find out. But Larell is the choice. He will be the president of the Philippines. Now, Larell is a super patriot. Who cares about the United States? I'm here for the Philippines. I'm here for the Filipinos. This war is going to end someday. Let's try and construct a government, create a constitution that will lead us through afterward. Constitution. They make him head of the committee to create the Constitution. And Larell put in there a highly centralized government. You know, is this just to deal with the Japanese, to have a guy who has got a lot of power, or is this something that he wants to happen later on? There have been a lot of speculation by many different people, but Larell never really says. So as independence is about to be granted, here comes Chick Parsons to report to MacArthur what's going on. He had gone into Mindanao in March of 1943 to set up a lot of coast watcher stations, figure out what's going on with the guerrilla movement, because MacArthur had to know. He had sent in Jesus Villamor in December of 42, but everybody knew who Villamor was. He couldn't leave his little camp because everybody recognizes him. So he sends Parsons in because Parsons can move freely. I mean, most of the pictures you see of Chick Parsons in World War II are out getting a suntan. So he looks like a Filipino. Walks around in Filipino clothes, tries to get everything gathered together for MacArthur. When he comes back, he's been in touch with Tony Ozamas, who is down from Misamis Occidental, down in Mindanao. Ozamas has been to Manila. Parsons sends him again. Ozamas meets with Rojas to find out what's going on in the government. Who's loyal? Who isn't? Parsons sends a 30-page letter to Quezon about what's going on in the Philippines. MacArthur reads that letter. When it comes to the part about Laurel, Parsons says this is a master of doublespeak. He is totally loyal to the Philippines. He's just following your orders as what to do. That's MacArthur's orders, which you gave him, and lists meetings at Cavite, meetings at the National Library. MacArthur crosses it all out. I never met Laurel. This is incorrect. I consider him pro-Japanese. Like I said, MacArthur's got his own ideas early in the beginning of the war, but they will change. September 43, Laurel's hauled off to Japan to meet the emperor, to be given medals, awards, and then to meet with Tojo, who says, okay, here comes independence, but now you have to declare war against the United States. And here's Laurel at his finest again. We can't do that. I don't have the support of the people. The manhood's wiped out from Bataan Corregidor. We can't conscript anybody. I can't declare war now. Tojo's taken aback, but he deals with it. Okay. So I mean, this is one of the gutsiest moves of Larell throughout the war. October 1943, Dr. Emigdio Cruz is sent into the Philippines by Quezon. Like with Ozamas, he wants to know what's happening in the Philippines, so he sends his own agent. Cruz goes to Negros, meets with Villamor. Villamor says there's no way you can get up to Manila, I'm not even going to help you. Cruz goes over to Panay, meets with Peralta. Peralta says there's no way you can get to Manila, I'm not even going to help you. Cruz had been ordered to go through. So Cruz goes back to Negros and meets with Alcejo and Absidi, two of the great guerrilla commanders, and they say, sure, we'll get you up there. This is if you know much about it, it is a comedy, Cruz coming to Manila, because almost every place he shows up, minutes after he leaves, the Japanese Kempe Tai show up and start arrest. It's almost like a Keystone Cops movie. Once he goes in one door, all the police come out the next door, and they never can find him. But Cruz makes it to Manila, meets with Rojas, and it's a bit different what Rojas now tells Cruz as opposed to what he told Ozamas, because in this report he says that Larell is a collaborator. And so now you've got two different reports coming back to MacArthur from the same guy, Rojas. What's that all about? Independence comes, October 43, Larell is the president. You are a member of the Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere. You are the example to the other nations. Asia for the Asiatics, wrong, it's Asia for Japan. You're puppets, you're gonna do everything we tell you to do, pretty much. But Larell works for a vision of the future Philippines, be that cushion to help the people try to go on. So, because this war will end someday. They ask all the nations of the world to recognize their independence. Roosevelt comes out immediately and says, no, we don't recognize you. You're a puppet government. I will deal with you when the war is over. This becomes U.S. policy. This is Roosevelt's policy that the Americans will deal with the collaboration issue. But March 1944, Quezon sends messages to MacArthur. Now they're compadres. Quezon is the godfather of MacArthur's son. MacArthur knows what that means. And everything Quezon tells him he wants for the Philippines, MacArthur will do his best to fulfill that. Quezon says you cannot bypass the Philippines and go to Formosa. You have to go liberate the Philippines now, or the Filipinos will never forget it. America has to come through on this. It cannot be let go. He also says the collaboration issue has to be a Filipino problem. America can't be the one who's administering any kind of justice, because the Filipinos will never forgive America for this. This is MacArthur's goal now. No matter what he thinks of the issue, this is what he will do. Fulfill the wishes of Manuel Quezon, not the wishes of what American radical politicians want, not his own wishes. He thinks there's only two people that can make MacArthur stand up and salute. One of them's FDR, the other one's Manuel Quezon. And while Quezon is telling MacArthur this is what he has to do, you've got guerrillas saying death to the puppets, and all that message traffic, a lot of which I'm donating, you'll find. Laurel, all of them, they're all collaborators, death to all of them. Now these are Americans. Sam Wilson, Clyde Childress, Wendell Furtick, Chick Parsons, but it's Filipinos as well. Salapita Pandatawan, down on Mindanao, Edwin Andrews, who will be on Negros. They're all saying the same thing. But MacArthur's going to make up his own mind, and it is the fulfillment of Quezon's wishes that he's going to perpetrate. July 44, the Pearl Harbor Conference. The Navy wants to go to Formosa. MacArthur, of course, I shall return. He's adamant to go back to the Philippines, believes that is the best access to defeat Japan. He's called on July of 44 to show up in Pearl Harbor. Doesn't know why, doesn't know Roosevelt's going to be there, shows up, there's Nimitz, there's Admiral Leahy, there's Franklin Delano Roosevelt to convince MacArthur of why they're going back to Formosa, or to Formosa. And MacArthur gets up for a half hour with no notes and convinces them of why they have to go back to the Philippines. Remember what I said about Eisenhower, smartest guy in the room. Stupidest thing those guys did was get MacArthur into a closed room, because he's going to talk him into anything. After the meeting's over, MacArthur looks to Roosevelt. I'd like to have a word with you. All of Roosevelt's aides are like, no, don't talk to him. Stay away from him. MacArthur gets in there. You have the moral obligation to liberate the Philippines. You abandoned them in 42. The United States has forgiven you. They'll never forgive you for bypassing them. The Filipinos will never forgive the United States for abandoning them. No other country in World War II fought for a moral obligation. Europeans in the Pacific, no, they wanted their colonies back. Japanese and the Germans, no, conquest. The Russians sat outside of Warsaw and let the Nazis kill off all the Polish freedom fighters just so they could go in and set up communist dictatorship right after. That's what I say, this is the best of America, this time frame. And especially because of MacArthur. Because without MacArthur, they would have gone to Formosa probably, except that it can't be done once the meeting is over. Now, there's no decision made, but it comes to be that they don't have the shipping to get to Formosa, and also assets that were in China that would be used, like the 14th Air Force, are not there. The only route is through the Philippines. There is no other choice for American strategy, because you can't go headlong in straight into Japan. Now, while all this is going on, all that Larell is preaching is survival. Food is becoming a major problem. Starvation. The Japanese are seizing everything. Before the war, most of it came from imports from Thailand and other places. You had the drought in 1940. You had the floods in 1943. You had the Japanese changing 9 districts over to cotton from rice. The Filipinos are starving, and everything about Larell is, in his March 1944 broadcast, said don't look to the sky for the Americans to come and give you food. All they're going to bring are bombs. Look to the plows. Look to the fields. We got to be able to solve this problem. Gets rid of NARIC, brings in BIBA, the Administration for Food, and puts Rojas in charge of that. Rojas had always been feigning sickness. This is the first time he'll work for the government. It is Larell that pretty much keeps Rojas away from Fort Santiago and Bayleaf headquarters. Osmeña's dilemma. MacArthur wants him to be there to go back to the Philippines. Secretary of State, or Interior Ickes, which controlled the Philippines in the pre-war period, wants a high commissioner to go with Osmeña to tell him what to do. MacArthur says, no, you can't have that. It has to be a totally Filipino government. You can't have Americans coming in here, once again, fulfilling Quezon's wishes. The worst of America, Secretary Ickes. I don't trust Filipinos to be able to control themselves. High Commissioner's got to go in there with them. MacArthur will fight this guy tooth and nail, even later, even more so. Because of the bombings over Manila, Japanese forced the Philippines to declare war, and rather than saying, we declare war on America, they say a state of war exists, but Larell keeps no conscription. That's the main thing. They will not be conscripting Filipinos to go fight for Japan. MacArthur comes back with Osmeña, October 20th, 1944. On December 29th, MacArthur issues his proclamation that deals with this collaboration question. Now, Roosevelt's policy, we're going to hold all the collaborators, we're going to try them all, but MacArthur's proclamation doesn't even call them collaborators. He calls them citizens who have given aid to the Japanese will be held by the United States for the duration of the war. They'll all be let go at the end of the war. That's what I mean. This is MacArthur vitiating U.S. policy. Saying, we can't do this. It has to be a Filipino question. This proclamation is what firms it for everybody. MacArthur puts this guy on the left, Brigadier General Elliott Thorpe, in charge of CIC to start arresting the collaborators, remove them from circulation. That's what MacArthur says. This is the only thing I can do. I can remove them from circulation. And a lot of that is to keep them out of the hands of the guerrillas, who have nothing but vengeance in mind to start wiping them out. 6,000 will be taken by counterintelligence corps. And they'll pretty much arrest anybody that has anything to do with anything, under the knowledge that they'll all be let go later on. December of 44, Laurel's government is removed to Baguio. Yamashita says he's going to declare an open city. Wrong. Doesn't. Larell agrees to go to save the people and the city. December 21st, they take off. Guerrilla reports report that he's left the city. And they go to Baguio until March, when they go to the Cagayan capital, and then they're flown out to Formosa. And they'll eventually get to Japan in June of 1945. Americans come back to Lingayen, the Battle of Manila. We just discussed it at length the other day, so we won't get back into it. But one of the interesting things is the 1st Cavalry Division, in their drive through the city, they set up a regimental headquarters in Larell's house. And the guys are amazed. It's not lavish. There's not tons of wealth. It's a very Spartan existence, something they didn't expect to find in what they saw as the collaborating head of the government. A lot different than other people. Rojas is liberated, April 45. Now, 3 times, Rojas told MacArthur he wanted to get removed from the Philippines by submarine. But MacArthur had always said, no, it's too dangerous. You stay where you are. You're doing a better job for me there in the Philippines. Once he's released, he's immediately cleared by MacArthur because of that fact. Nobody can understand this, especially Osmeña. Rojas shows up with Osmeña. What is he doing here? Why him of anybody else? Now MacArthur will haul these guys into conferences, May 24th, May 25th, May 26th, 45, trying to get them to work together for the betterment of the Philippines, but these guys will never work together. They've got their own ideas of what they want. Osmeña will say, he just wants to release all the collaborators. And Rojas will say, Osmeña, I can't go along with any plans that he's got because he just wants to do what the Americans want. And this becomes the issue after the war. What do we do? Collaboration issue becomes what is the main crux of the election. June 1945, MacArthur's on the way down to the Borneo invasions, the stops by Palawan. That's where they're keeping all the people that have been arrested for collaboration. This is Bonner Fellers. He's MacArthur's military secretary. In his diary, he writes that MacArthur goes in to visit them all. And he's just thrown. And even said, these guys are all my friends. This is everybody I've dealt with, mixed with in the pre-war Philippines. The only person he talks to is Madrigal. He says, I saw your son the other day. He sends his best love to you. And I think this is what really changes MacArthur's mind. You know, nobody knows what they're going to do until they're in that situation. All the Philippines was a concentration camp. Everybody had a gun to their head. And I think he came to understand that finally. Philippines are liberated. Yumash is held up in the Cagayan area, Cordillera. Atomic bombs, the end. War's over. Now, rather than stay in the Philippines, which I think the United States should have made happen, keep MacArthur there, be the guy who helps him out, they send him to Japan. Kind of crazy. Truman is the one who sends him there. They knew all the problems they had had with him. But MacArthur's engineers, a guy named Lee Sverdrup, and he's there in the White House and convinces Truman that he will not have any problems with Douglas MacArthur. It's a decision Truman probably regretted many times over the next 6 years. But as soon as MacArthur gets ready to leave, 23 August 45, he turns over the whole collaboration issue to Osmania. Elliot Thorpe goes in to see Osmania. I'm giving you all back the collaborators. Osmania, you wouldn't really do that to me, would you? Oh yeah. Here comes the truckload of all the cases, all the case files. It's in Philippine hands now. And especially, MacArthur goes to Japan, Supreme Commander of Allied Powers. He's now in charge of putting together Japan. He tells the Filipinos, I'll always be here for consultation, but this is my job now. He is a general. He follows orders. I know it's hard to believe that. But when Truman fired him, it wasn't for insubordination, failure to follow orders. It was just he wasn't in line with U.S. policy. MacArthur goes before Congress and, knows if they had tried to get him as a court-martial for insubordination, he would have fought it tooth and nail because he follows every order. He may fight it tooth and nail. He may tell you everything he believes and why you shouldn't do things, but once the order is given, he does go by it. Secretary Ickes, the worst of America. Here it comes, September 11th, 1945. Message to Osmania. How come you're not trying those collaborators? Ickes wanted to shoot them outright. No trial whatsoever. And says to Osmania, you don't start trying those people, we're not giving you any funds for rehabilitation. The worst of America. September 14th, Larell, Aquino, Masias, Vargas, they're all arrested in Japan. They go to Yokohama prison. They're not told why. What did we do? What's the charge? November, they're sent to Sagamo prison with all the other war criminals. Why? What did we do? What's the charge? Nothing's told to them. These are the orders of the Allied governments. This isn't MacArthur saying, I'm going to hold all these people. But he is given leeway of who's going to be tried and when. Now, MacArthur knows what's going on with Ickes. He knows that Paul McNutt, the High Commissioner who's come back to the Philippines, is pressing to try the Filipinos in an American court because he doesn't think it's going to be done in the Philippines. Attorney General Tom Clark back in the United States sends a guy named Walter Hutchinson out here to the Philippines who recommends that a lot of these guys be tried by American courts. MacArthur knows this is what's going to happen, so he keeps him in Japan. And he doesn't send him back. And he doesn't talk to him because he knows if he goes to see him, it's going to be in the press. And everybody's going to say MacArthur's just going by his own whim and own will. But MacArthur's waiting. March 1946, War Department. What are you going to do with these people? McNutt, Attorney General Tom Clark, Secretary Ickes. We want Larell Aquino, Vargas, we want to try him in an American court. What are you going to do with them? Why are you still holding them? And MacArthur comes right out. And this is where MacArthur's at his best. So this is a Filipino question. This isn't an American question. We decide what we're going to do with these Filipinos.